This is a politically centered podcast.
Linnsie Clark, welcome to the Politically Centered Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It is so good to see you this morning. I know we were going to do the interview outside. We had a beautiful spot pick, but the fall weather in Medicine Hat, Alberta did not agree with us this morning. And I much prefer sitting here in my living room other than shivering in the corner of a garden. But it was a beautiful spot, but it did not work.
Yeah, you can't have everything. I think this is pretty sweet that we get to be warm in our homes and still be face to face.
Absolutely. So, I usually start most interviews saying, "Tell me about yourself," and tell the general public, but I think for you it would be somewhat a moot point based on your current position and who you are. So, I'm going to ask you a different question. We're going to start this interview off. Take me back to 4 years ago around this time when you were running for office for the very first time. What was going through your head? What were your goals and ideals? What were you thinking?
My goals and ideals are actually very much the same as they were 4 years ago. Definitely very governance focused. I think over the last couple of decades, this was you know, putting myself 4 years back, over the previous 2 decades, gradually more and more of council's authority kind of got shifted to administration. So, for example, in the very last council, um, they moved the legal department, so the city solicitor's department, from reporting to council to reporting to the city manager, as well as like the council executive assistant from reporting to council to reporting to the city manager. Prior to that, it was the city clerk. Prior to that, is the commissioners, and so on and so on. And so I found that to be kind of a troubling trend when you need to have checks and balances. Having access to, for example, the city solicitor without going through the city manager, is a critical thing for council to have access to because, we're doing like we have an employee. There's sometimes legal advice necessary when you're dealing with HR matters, especially when you're a group of 9 people who don't necessarily have legal background or HR background. So just making sure that both sides of the coin, like everything in balance, that both sides of the coin really had the resources to check each other. And that's good governance, that making sure that if you're having oversight, you actually have the resources to provide that oversight. I mean, we both have heard of disasters that happen when oversight gets overlooked. Like very, very dangerous situations can happen, like water treatment plants. Was it Walkerton? Um, that had an outbreak of disease in their water, and it caused a disaster. So, all of those things are necessary for a functioning democracy. You got to have the oversight, the balance, and then of course, transparency and openness was big for me. Um, and so that like good governance was a big, big part of it. I also really felt and feel that the city should serve everyone. Sometimes it seems like, certain people have more access, better access than others. And I just think as a public body, it is important that we're looking out for and considering the needs of all of our residents, including those who can't vote, like the young people in our community.
And that's a very good point, right? The people who are not old enough to vote still have a voice in our community, and who gets to be their voice. To give credit to you and your council, I did say during one of my other interviews that during my research, while I was releasing some of the FOIP information, I was doing some external digging, and I was hitting hundreds of little cities and larger cities around Alberta and collecting data. And statistically speaking, the records for the city of Medicine Hat were the easiest to access online.
Oh.
And I did make a post stating that Medicine Hat was overall the most transparent city I could find for records as far as how easy it was to find those records. I mean, that depends on each individual person's level of expertise in technology, and that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Calgary and Edmonton have different systems. Uh, in some ways, it kind of depends what platform you're using, what software you're using in terms of like what's it going to look like and the interface and whatnot. But until this term, we actually didn't have our policies on our website, like the city policies on the website. So, even that little, improvement is significant. So, that's been a progress that's made in the last 4 years.
So I'm going to go back 4 years ago to, I believe it was October 20th. I might be off a day or so. I don't remember the exact date, but
18th. If
18th.
it's the date that I think you're talking
It
about, it was
is the
the
date. It is. I
18th.
couldn't remember exactly what date it was, but three words on your Facebook page, and I believe a picture of you like this with a big smile that says, "We did it," if my memory serves. What were you thinking? What were you feeling?
I was elated and so grateful. Um, it's such an honor to have your community select you for a position like this and trust you to do what you say you're going to do and believe that your values reflect their values. And I think that is something that we really need to think closely about when we're electing our political leaders. What are their values? Because especially in municipal government, you can't really promise that you're going to deliver X, Y, Z because it's a council of nine. Everyone on that council, despite the fact that, one's called the mayor and the others are councilors, all have one vote. No, like the mayor doesn't really have any special powers under our current system.
And anybody who has sat as a chair of a board, like I have, understands how frustrating that is to vote against something, have the board vote against you, and then get flack for the decision. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I think as long as you're confident in someone's values that, they are looking out for the best interest of the community, putting their community first, not their ego. I think that's what you really have to be looking for in this election and any local election because there isn't the same level of control and power that there is at other levels of government to just implement your mandate unilaterally.
I've spoken about that in a few of my interviews. What happened to voting for somebody's character? Because
Yeah,
that is way out the window. Way out.
yeah,
And we're gonna leave the Donald Trump conversation out of this interview completely. But I see that as the key pivotal moment in the history of the world where we took character and personality and went, yeah, let's just crumple this up, throw it in the garbage can,
yeah.
and yeah, it was shocking.
And not to be like too controversial, but we have a lot more reality TV type programs that, in a way, celebrate uh, behaving badly, or what when we were young we would call behaving badly. And I think, that rubs off on people. I often talk about how the social contract seems to have eroded, if not completely disappeared. You forget how important things like manners are. In some ways, they're what keeps us from chaos, from like keeping us in a civilization. Manners are actually probably kind of important to that. So you're absolutely right. Uh, Thinking about how their moms would feel about what they're saying and doing sometimes would probably not be ideal.
On that note, sorry, Mom. So what do you feel that you've been able to accomplish in this 4-year term? What do you, what are you proud of? What do you feel has been a personal or a failure on the council's part? Just take me back over the last 4 years as much as you can. Some of the things that are on your mind.
Well, we've made a lot of progress in terms of um, that in the energy department and innovation. And I know that it sometimes doesn't seem like it, but if you look back, from the beginning of our term, we've definitely we created an environmental framework, which is you have the environmental framework, and then that's kind of the basis for, the energy transition framework. And energy transition, it can be a triggering term for some people, because it's pretty broad. But I think the gist of it is that we're in a period of time where decarbonization policy from like globally, federal government, provincial government is having impact on how we need to do business. So it's making natural gas generated power more expensive and kind of incentivizing renewable energy. And so, we've looked into like we've participated in, you know, a it was kind of a competition to select businesses and partner with them to do pilot projects. And so we have a couple of pilot projects we're working on in our energy department that are using AI and machine learning to improve the efficiency of our grid, basically, or our system. That's really important to me. I think we have a lot of opportunity to, especially owning all of our own utilities, all of our own infrastructure, to do some of that cutting edge research and pilot projects. I mean, it is sometimes it's a risk because it's a new innovative thing, but I think it's important that we, you know, take calculated strategic risks, and be on the cutting edge where possible. And that, of course, understanding an understanding of our risk profile and what amount of risk we're willing to take, and making sure that we're carefully analyzing whether something is within our risk tolerance, I guess. Um, and so the other things, we've done a community wellness plan. We expanded for the fair entry program, which was really important, especially over the last few years. And of course, working with four or five other municipalities to put together a regional economic development strategy. That is just something that, was in our strategic plan. It was in my platform. Really proud of that. I don't know if you know this, but sometimes it's difficult for municipalities to work together and have an understanding that, if we're a region together, when one of us wins, we all win. Having an attitude of our region is stronger and more competitive together, and figuring out ways that we can work together without sacrificing our autonomy as individual municipalities. And so that type of relationship building over the last 4 years we've made a lot of progress there. And I think we're definitely in a stronger place intermunicipally than we were when we started.
Go
We all,
ahead.
yeah. So a couple of things that we started, and didn't necessarily make it to the end, but I think need to be reignited in the next council is we had a government relations strategy, and a government relations person that was basically, implementing the strategy and developing relationships with the chiefs of staffs and schedulers of the different ministries, federally and provincially. Um, like everybody wants to have their picture taken with the minister, and the minister, like we've thankfully had ministers and MLAs and of course the premier give us time in their schedules, but I think even they would admit that a lot of the work, the real nitty gritty work, is the administrative staff, their or their political staff, their chief of staff and scheduler. So maintain having someone really maintain those relationships, kind of gives you more access, and they can remind their minister, hey, did you think about Medicine Hat? They have such and such, and they might be interested in hearing about this. So that government relations piece is definitely important to carry on and strengthen. Also, we were doing town halls, and so that's something I think is really important. So they were council town halls. Our our council meetings don't really allow for people in our community to just, hey, I want 5 minutes to say something. So, I've been thinking about something or I have a question, and I just want 5 minutes to speak to council and administration. Uh, and that's like a reasonable thing to ask. But of course, council meetings, you got an agenda, it's tight. So town halls allow that type of engagement with council, between council and the community, that isn't permitted or isn't available in the context of a council meeting. That allows us to get valuable feedback. It's not it's not a matter of let's protect ourselves, or it shouldn't be a matter of let's protect ourselves from hearing
Communication.
anything negative.
Yeah, communication is important, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's not just a there is a I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it's not a lack of communication, but it is this communications gap that it seems to have there seems to be one between every governing body, no matter how big or how small, and its citizens, and it's a constant challenge. And I was glad you brought that up because a lot of people do feel like things are dropped on them at the last minute by every level of government without being
yeah.
informed. And the information is out there almost all the time. It's just that people can't seem to find it. It's not in obvious places where people are aware of it.
Yeah.
How do you see that improving?
Well, just one comment on that point is, sometimes also, and I'm guilty of this for sure, is that I'm not paying attention until it impacts me. So I'm not reading the permit notices, making sure I'm diligently going through them just in case one of them might impact me.
You're
You
you're you're a human being, and we
yeah.
miss things sometimes. Yeah.
So, that's part of it. Another struggle is, you know, what are the right platforms that you have to notify on, or communicate on, because not everybody's on social media. Not everybody is that necessarily internet savvy. Not everybody reads the newspaper. Not every, like the local news station is no longer televising. So it's it's about finding the right mix of like where we need to be communicating and how we need to be communicating. And I also think it's very much cultural. Um, I mentioned a bit ago that I think sometimes we're just afraid about what we're going to hear. And so being open to hear what people have to say and really listen to people when they have something to say is one cultural change or aspect of cultural change that needs to happen. Business, like the private sector, is thirsty for information from their market, from their customers. And uh, that allows them to tweak their products and services kind of in like close to real time so that they're receiving feedback. They, I'm assuming, are using some big data analysis, and that allows them to get this real time feedback on the new product they released or the new app that they've produced. We need to be like that. We we need to be good at customer service. Being good at customer service means making sure that you are in touch enough with your market, your customers, to provide them the products and services that they want. That happens in a variety of ways. There's obviously an element of being aware of what's going on in social media. There's doing town halls. There's having an effective way for people to access what they need at City Hall or the city generally. We do not have a 311 system. That was something that was in our strategic plan, and certainly, well, I'll say actually a one window approach. So not everybody knows what one window is, but they like 311 is sort of one version of that. So basically, as a citizen, I just have to go one place and I can find what I need from my government by just going through that one portal or calling that one number. That makes it easier for people to reach out and give their feedback. And you can also set it up so that 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 information, so say we have 10 people calling in one day about um, I don't know, the potholes. Well, we can track that year over year and maybe adjust our services. Oh, maybe we need to get our pothole crews out um, just after the coldest day or whatever it is. But it allows you to track information and use that information to better your services for your community.
I've got a quick question. Going back to the
Okay.
beginning of this conversation, you had mentioned the reusing some AI in relation to the power plant. Now, I the only reason I'm
Ish.
bringing that up, the reason I bring that up is because I know that there's probably going to be comments who are very from people who are very anti-AI and they're very concerned about it. But I use AI a lot in what I do, and I use it as a super calculator. Essentially, that's what I'm doing is to crunch information. I don't ask it to think for me. I don't ask it to do things for me. I'm sure you're not asking it to run the power plant while you sit there and smoke a cigar. But,
Yeah.
do you
No.
want to just elaborate on that, please?
Yes, I absolutely can. So, um, council approved the City of Medicine Hat's participation in the decentralized energy next generation energy innovation challenge. I think that's the name of it, but it was decentralized energy. If you Google it, it'll come up. And so the project was designed to kind of link uh, uh, innovative businesses with energy companies where they could test their business. So one project is the grid decongestion at the distribution level. So this is a project with Arcus Power to optimize the deployment of distributed energy storage. So that is like battery storage that's distributed across your distribution area, and how to maximize to optimize that. So that's sort of testing a future thing that we could do and how what that would look like and how we could best use that. And then with Edgecom Edge Edgecom Energy, there's just it's a real-time monitoring software and predictive analytics to improve efficiency. So optimizing energy use, lowering emissions without operational disruption. So in some ways, and I'm not pretending I understand uh, exactly all of the ins and outs, but using, as you say, the computing power that is available to run models and um, show you what something might look like without actually doing that thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for all of our viewers, basically what she said there was what I said, super calculator.
Yes, that is
Yeah,
correct.
that was
That
my
is correct.
takeaway. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And, the fact is that people are concerned about their tax dollars, and if you can use an AI program to do what you have to outsource to a group of mathematicians to do for you, it's going to cost the taxpayers a lot less money.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say too, it gives you like quicker results
Yeah.
and more real-time results can be achieved. But I do agree, it's our grid is sorry, our distribution area, our energy business is, a security is paramount. So we are and we always have to be careful about, different technologies that we're introducing into our system and we have a great group of staff working hard on that every day.
Yeah, not to get too far off topic, but one of the main things that I follow is how Russia and China and international agencies are targeting utilities around North America and trying to hack them on a regular basis. So it introduces a whole other factor into Medicine Hat that nobody ever thinks of that you have to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, with quantum computing potentially, or at least the uh, general usage of quantum computing introduces a whole other level of risk. So it's a bit like that. I don't know if you read Mad Magazine, but the spy versus spy, where, as threats ramp up, the security ramps up, and then the threat. So
Chat,
it's
it's called chess.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel really grateful for the staff that we have there, protecting us from all of those invisible threats.
So now take me back 2 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, that day on city council, I let me see if I can remember this. Point of order. You're going on a diatribe.
Yeah.
Those were the words used. And for all of our viewers, a diatribe is a really nice name for a rant. I didn't feel like you were going on a rant. Those were the words that were used. You were visibly frustrated, but you were keeping your cool. You weren't screaming and yelling. You weren't throwing pencils at Anne. Just for the record. And I watched that video multiple times. Explain to me what you were feeling that started this whole chain reaction of events.
Yeah, I think I was pretty confused. It's, you know, sometimes in moments like that, uh, you, it takes a while to process what's even going on here. I felt like I was asking questions about potential risk and consequences that of proceeding in the manner that we did because there were potential consequences and council should know what the consequences are of the decisions that they're making. So I was kind of just surprised like what's happening and felt kind of I don't know, out of the loop, I guess. It felt a little bit like everyone else had, you know, gotten a message that I hadn't. So, from my perspective, I was doing my job in good faith, asking questions that I thought were reasonable. Were they were they tough questions? Potentially, but I didn't even feel like they were that tough of questions. Like there were answers readily available to the questions. And watching the sort of extreme reaction to my questions felt a bit disorienting, to be honest with you.
You know, I analyzed I because I think several of the counselors, or it possibly was just Shyla Sharps, who had mentioned that she thought council had been informed earlier. So I dug into the previous comments, and I did find that you and your counsel were informed, but it was a little footnote in a massive piece of information. There was no verbal consultation, there was no meeting. Is that correct? Is what I found correct? Is that is the only time you were informed previous to that moment that this had happened?
Um, so basically the series of events were we had discussed whether 'cause there was a big reorganization in the last term, near the end of the term. And then, that there were some things that maybe weren't working very well or seemed confusing to council. And so there was discussion about we need to look at the organization and the city manager then, according to our bylaw, brings back those recommendations to council for approval. So it's the the being informed part isn't actually what's required. And I think like I agree, we received I don't know if you've read my Kingsgate submission, but basically we got an email informing us of like very high level, these are the changes that are happening. We discussed those on July 4th. At that time, we were told council doesn't have a role in this. Council doesn't approve this. And the city manager said that she had a legal opinion from city solicitor saying that she has the authority to unilaterally approve the reorganization.
Sorry to interrupt. So
Yes.
the impression I'm getting is that you felt that this was going to be an ongoing discussion, and I'm just take giving you my takeaway is you thought this was going to be an ongoing discussion, and then at that council meeting you were like there was no further discussion, it just happened, and you were a little caught off guard. Is that right?
Um, so basically we were told there there wasn't there wasn't a need for discussion. So on
I
that
see.
July 4th meeting, it was just, I'm the city manager. I have authority to do this, so I'm going to do it. I've informed you that it's done. We're doing it. So even by July 4th, people had been laid off. The reorg was being implemented, and had in fact been implemented by July 10th. But at that time, up until the briefing notes that came to the August 21st meeting, we were told that council didn't have a role in approving the reorg. So
Interesting.
yeah, so it wasn't a ratification of some prior decision because council was told we're not required to make a decision on it. It's completely within the authority of the city manager. So then at the August 21st meeting, those briefing notes that came forward, that is when the the narrative shifted from council doesn't have a role to actually we are required to do this by bylaw. the council is the decision maker on this. So it's more about who makes the decision than being informed of something. Like, for example, if, we were informed that administration was looking into selling our utility and or doing an MCC, that's a good example, is doing the MCC, and then came back and said, we've done the MCC. Well, you've skipped a pretty important step there. We bringing back the recommendation and allowing council to make the decision is a critical step. It's not like a procedural oversight. That's like
Well, the way from my perspective, the way the city functions is that the Corporation of Medicine Hat, which Anne technically runs in its simplest form, and council is that bridge of communication between the Corporation of Medicine Hat and the people of Medicine Hat. And you set the direction that the corporation takes, and she runs the corporation, and you feel that she had short circuited that communication between you and the people. Is that
no,
no? Okay.
sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm asking. That's why, because it's very complex.
So bylaws, so only council can pass bylaws. Like we can't delegate that power, and council can only act by resolution or bylaw passed in an open meeting of council. So council has authority over a certain scope of things, the policy things, and also whatever we're required by law to be the decision maker on. So our bylaw, the administrative organization bylaw, said that council decides how many people report to the city manager. So the city manager can't just have, you know, 20 people reporting to them, a bunch of new positions, just declaring these positions now report directly to the city manager. That's a council decision as the employer of the city manager and the governance board of the city. So that was a legal requirement for us to make that decision. The MGA and the administrative organization bylaw have rules about designated officers. So council created the designated officers by bylaw, which is also our administrative organizational bylaw. And so, for example, in that bylaw, the city clerk, so this is the law, the city clerk reports to the city solicitor. And so, because it's a bylaw, only council can change that. Because council has to then amend the bylaw in order for the city clerk to change their reporting relationship pursuant to the Municipal Government Act and our own bylaws. Council has to make a bylaw amendment. Does that make sense? So,
Yes, does.
okay.
Yeah. So, you just at your last city council meeting, you brought up the email, that you felt had escalated this from a discussion into a massive, massive blowout, the leaked email. I know you had mentioned that at previous meetings. I don't have a lot of questions specifically about it, but that was absolutely, there's no ands, if, or buts about it. Whoever leaked the email, that just, to put it in plain language, that sucked. It really did. It was underhanded. It was wrong morally and ethically and legally. um I just want to give you an opportunity to talk about that.
Yeah, I, I mean, I don't know what the intention of that person was in sharing the email with the city manager, but council needs to have the trust that when they're having, discussions about performance evaluations or other sensitive topics, that information is going to stay within council. And, especially something like that can have such a damaging relationship on, like, it divides council. It causes potentially hurt and lack of trust among council and between council and administration. And, it's very possible that that person felt like they were doing the right thing. But that goes back, I think, to the training that council gets. There's not a lot about managing our one employee. So there's not I come from a different world, law and, other people around the table where the importance of confidentiality is kind of just second nature. You just
Right.
know, you understand it's confidential.
You are a lawyer by trade, are you not?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And so, maybe it was an honest mistake. Maybe it was, intentionally malicious. Maybe it was to get in the city manager's good books. I don't know why. And when I asked council to investigate who was the person who leaked the email, that was not agreed to. So, um, you know,
I
that
actually love how you're not reading too much intention into that and how you're being fair because you are being very fair, right? You're saying you don't know, you're not assuming. You're just and go ahead. I just wanted to add that.
yeah, so regardless, the effect of it was pretty negative
Yes.
in terms of the interrelationship between council and between council and administration. So that's a lesson learned, right? There's a lot of takeaways from these last 2 years, 4 years, and stressing the importance of, so why it's important for it to be confidential. Like, what are the consequences if we don't keep information confidential? Because even in terms of economic development and business attraction, we, if we're known as a leaky ship, businesses aren't necessarily going to trust us to, you know, have those confidential meetings to potentially uh, get their investment. We have to be professional and understand the rules of engagement. So that's something, in orientation and just, as the mayor, sometimes it a little bit feels like I don't want people to think that, I don't think they know this. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to make people feel like you guys don't know what confidentiality means, so I'm going to explain it. But just to do regular reminders and make a system. I think it's really important to have a system of confidentiality categorization. So, like, if it's on a pink sheet or if it's got a highlighted yellow header on the top, that it's just clear this is not to be disclosed, and making the clarifying the line between confidential and not confidential for people who maybe haven't worked in that kind of environment before is something that's really important. And another learning for me is assuming that people have the same knowledge I have. I don't have the same knowledge they have. Like, I know I know that that's silly, but at the same time, I assumed people read and understood the bylaws. I assumed people, had read and understood the policies and things like that. But, in hindsight, never take those things for granted. Sometimes people will even nod along with you, but it's not a nod of, I understand what you're saying. It's a nod of, I'm listening to you. So even those little things, making sure that the communication is just really clear And it's way better to over communicate than under communicate,
Not to make
unless
light of
it's
the
confidential.
not to make light of the whole subject, but have you ever considered getting like a top secret stamp and a little card that opens up and plays the Mission Impossible theme music,
Well, I am going to do it now. This message will self-destruct.
You just took the words right out of my mouth. I think pretty sure it would set the smoke alarms off in City Hall though, which would probably not be the best thing.
Yeah, we'd have other problems then.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, sprinklers going off, water running out the front door. Nah, bad idea. Um,
Yeah. I will, just to like tie that whole thing up. Um, I I do feel though that over the last 3 or 4 months, council has really come together. And, you know, it going through there was the code of conduct and then that whole investigation and then the judicial review and then the inspection, the provincial inspection, which came out so close to the election, which is strange that the province agreed to do that inspection, but they did. So you have all this like background nonsense that keeps just picking away at that wound, and it kind of it has an impact on relations for sure, but I think at all times, like we still accomplish stuff. I know council always there's delays making decisions all the time. Um, but I'm not sure that that's exactly true. Um, but I think we did our best to work together in a very difficult situation. And it's unfortunate that it was such a public difficult situation. But sorting all of that through and coming together in the end was really satisfying, to have some kind of positive resolution at the end of it. And, if we had another year, another 2 years, probably be, you know, you know, gradually getting even stronger and stronger. But 4 years is what we get. So I was at least very pleased to see that we were able to come together and as a council and end our term like that.
the impression that I'm getting is that you were all very, very thankful that it was over.
Yeah.
And that there's a lot of regret. But it's the thing is that sometimes hindsight, well, actually always hindsight is always 2020, right? And things we would
Yeah.
have done different. And as I've said in previous interviews with other incumbents or people who have held office previously, it's very easy for us as the general public to sit there in front of our TV and scream, you should have thrown the pass to the other
Yeah.
catcher. But,
Yeah.
being in the hot seat, making decisions, sticking your neck out, that is the hard place to be. And not everybody always makes the best decision because we just don't know the future.
Yeah. And setting council up for success, I think really takes um good orientation, good training, and clearer rules. I think there's a lot of room for the Municipal Government Act to clarify the rules, the differences in the rules, um, a little bit more. And certainly as a council deciding early on what our rules of engagement are going to be. Because we can disagree on issues like we should have a diversity among council, but there's probably certain things that we just are no-go. For example, don't let us as a council be divided. So a divided house can't stand. And I'm not talking about division on issues, I'm talking about the strategy of dividing council up so that you can get your way, basically. So those types of things, I don't think necessarily everyone expects or everyone sees when they're happening. So just clarifying it with council and giving them a heads up, giving them training to say, like, this is how you manage your employee, and these are things to look out for. And um, not everybody is going to be telling the truth. So don't just believe everything you hear. Just some really general stuff that isn't necessarily common sense for people.
Looking at the next 4 years, if you are running for re-election right now, looking at the next 4 years, if you do get reelected as mayor, what do you hope that's going to look like? What do you hope to accomplish? You've already verbalized that, you to a certain extent that you feel like, there were 2 years of the term that were so focused on the situation at hand that you weren't able to accomplish as much as you had hoped. So if you do get reelected, then what do you hope to be able to accomplish over the next 4 years?
Well, I would really like to see an exciting but trustworthy council. Um, I'm really interested in council being more the face of economic development as well, not doing the economic development, but being the, empowered to go to different cities and different places and really sell what Medicine Hat has to offer. And we're really working with our community to empower the things that are good that are happening. Like, people are doing amazing things in our city that make it better, that make our community better. So last night, Community Spirit Awards, you have this stage full of people who just kind of out of their own interest, their own passion, decided, I'm just gonna do these amazing things and that benefit our community. They don't have to, they choose to do that, and they are successful. So we need to be empowering those actions. And sometimes that means just getting out of the way. Sometimes it means, donating a space or giving a micro grant to some of these groups, but the city can't do everything, and I don't think should do everything. Your community knows best what it wants and needs, and a good way of telling is that, oh, this big group of people got together and organized this festival, so the community must want that festival. So, I think we have a lot of untapped potential, if we just kind of get out of the way and empower our community to do the things that it's already good at, and then step out of the way.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna close this interview on just a little comment.
Okay.
When you and I were chatting, setting up this interview, I had said to you in text, because I think this speaks to your character, and I was very impressed by how you approached it. And I like to give people credit where credit is due. Where I said, "How about I come down to City Hall and we do a in-person meeting in the mayor's office?" I think I had asked you that, and you said that you did not feel it would be fair or right for you to use the mayor's position in order to further your advancement to get reelected, was essentially the conversation. So I want
Yeah.
to commend you for that you
Thank
wanted
you.
me to treat you like every other candidate, and not the current sitting mayor, because I think it speaks volumes to your moral compass and who you are as a person.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So thank you so much for coming on the Politically Centered podcast. It has been my pleasure speaking with you today.
I enjoyed myself as well, and I love the name, the
Thank
podcast.
you. I have been thinking about that, and in hindsight, when you have that moment of realization that if you take off each letter, it spells PCP, It caught me a little off
Oh,
guard. Yeah, it caught me a little off guard. I love this name, and then I'm like, wait a minute, if I were to ever abbreviate this, I think this is
yeah.
that moment hit me over the last little while, I have to admit.
I believe at one point in Canada's history, there was a party with the acronym CRAP, the CRAP
Oh,
party, I
really?
think.
I
I
didn't know
think
that.
so.
Well, it's that would be about as catchy as the Rhino Party.
Yeah,
It's got some pizzazz to it, you know.
it does. Yeah, you don't forget it.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Lindsay.
Thank you and have a good day.
You too.
Support for today's episode comes from The Phone Whisperer, Medicine Hat's best kept secret since 2010. Serving Medicine Hat and area for over 15 years. Created by the mind behind iFix phones. Need a fix? Call 403-488-1220. The Phone Whisperer. Welcome home, Hatters.
This is a politically centered podcast.